What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here with another Week 5 preview for you guys right here live on YouTube. And we got the Battle of the Tigers, and it is the number 22 Auburn Tigers traveling to Death Valley to take on the LSU Tigers. 8 p.m. Central Time kickoff, man. It is going to be right in the middle of prime time. It's going to be a late night in Baton Rouge live on ESPN. And the LSU Tigers are 3.5 point favorites over the higher ranked Auburn Tigers. And man, this is such a huge SEC West matchup. And for me, it really serves as a potential SEC elimination matchup for the season because if these two teams want to make any sort of run in the West, which is absolutely loaded with Texas A&M, Arkansas emerging, Ole Miss is a top 13 team in the country, and then of course the pinnacle is the Alabama Crimson Tide. These teams have to win this game. So whoever loses this game could pretty much chalk it up as to being out of the SEC West race, while the winner is going to have all the momentum in the world to go into this SEC gauntlet that is ahead for both of these teams. LSU got their first SEC win of the year last week, and Mississippi State escaped a very close game. Auburn, this serves as their SEC matchup in Death Valley, which is going to be rocking this Saturday night. Now, for storylines, there's plenty. LSU comes into this matchup one loss, but they've responded very well since their week one loss to UCLA. And Coach O and the Tigers are looking to start 2-0 in the SEC, which many people probably would not have predicted based on that week one result in UCLA. And this game right now really could go a long way in securing Coach O's job security and, like I said, the momentum of this LSU team moving forward into the season. Now, for Auburn, they're also coming in at 3-1. They suffered that loss to Penn State and Happy Valley, and they really had a struggle win last week against Georgia State. And the storylines on Auburn's side is really endless. I mean, from Harsin firing the wide receiving coach just out of the blue after the Georgia State game to TJ Finley's potential revenge game this weekend against LSU after taking over for Bo Nix in the second half against Georgia State and leading the Tigers on a game-winning touchdown drive to end that game. Now, the other storyline, it's always going to be a storyline in this game until the streak ends. The Tigers are looking for their first win in Death Valley since 1999. Just to put it in perspective for you guys, I was 2 years. I was 2 years old, about to turn three when that game occurred in 1999. That shows you how long it's been. LSU has just found a way to beat Auburn consistently when they visit Death Valley, and man, an 8 o'clock primetime matchup with quarterback questions and a new head coach. It is going to be an absolutely wild Saturday night in Death Valley. Now, Auburn dominated this game last season, but LSU has won 3 of the last 4 matchups, while the Tigers from Baton Rouge and LSU lead this overall series 31-23 with one tie that's been defined by huge moments, big storylines, even more important games. And this game always seems to have something wild or crazy happen. And I cannot wait for Saturday night at 8 o'clock. Now, the keys for the game, man. Let's start with the Auburn Tigers. It should be simple, especially with the questions surrounding the quarterback spot, with all the uncertainty, the drama, the inconsistency. The Tigers have to run the football against LSU, which has shown some weaknesses at times against the run, especially in that UCLA game. Now, they've shown that running the ball is their strength because last week when it sputtered, Tank Bigsby might have had one of his worst games in an Auburn uniform when healthy last week, and Hunter really had to take over down the stretch. But when they're not going, this Auburn offense really sputters and struggles if they become one dimensional. They've run for 257 yards per game thus far, and they have to try to find a way to replicate that this weekend. Bigsby's up over 400 yards already, averaging over 6 yards per carry and 4 rushing touchdowns, while Hunter, the true freshman out of nowhere, 382 yards on the ground. He's still averaging over 10 yards per carry and 2 rushing touchdowns. They have to be huge factors against this LSU defense. If I'm Brian Harsin and Mike Bobo, these two guys have to have probably 40 carries combined. I would say 40 to 45 carries minimum, maybe even 50, depending on how the quarterbacks look. I'm going to let you guys know one stat. I said this at the Penn State game, and Auburn fans roasted me for it, and I ended up being right about it. If you pass the ball more than you run the ball this weekend, Auburn is going to lose this game. Tank Bigsby and Jarquez Hunter should be the sole off the primary focus of the offense until you get the quarterbacks comfortable in the system. You have to run the football if you're Auburn this weekend. Now, I know many Auburn fans are more focused on this QB battle between Bo Nix and TJ Finley, which even adds more importance to the running game because the running game has to take some pressure off of these guys. Now, last week, Bo Nix had only 48% of his passes completed for 156 yards and 0 touchdown drives led before TJ Finley came in and threw for 100 yards, a touchdown, and completed about 56% of his passes. Now, as you guys know, I do write for Fly War Eagle. All signs are pointing toward Bo Nix starting and Finley being used if things go south. But the rumor and all the reports point toward Harsin not officially announcing a start until Saturday night. Now, Bo Nix did stay on the top of the depth chart they released early this week, but everyone understands that that could change at a moment's notice. So don't expect Harsin to make an official announcement until the Tigers take that first drive on Saturday night. Now, I personally, I'll give you all my quick opinions. I know that's what this show's about. I personally would start Finley due to multiple reasons, but the main one is I think Harsin could lose the locker room if he puts Nix back into this QB1 role after Finley showed what he showed last week. Under pressure last week, just under pressure, because that's where I think the biggest difference are with both of these guys. Finley graded out at a 92.1 Pro Football Focus grade, 6 for 8, 68 yards and a touchdown, and was averaging over 8.5 yards per attempt under pressure. Nix was graded at a 33.3, was 2 for 9 for 10 yards, and averaged 1.1 yards per attempt under pressure. Now, why do I bring out under pressure? Why do I bring up this under pressure stat? I'll get into it in my matchup to watch, but let's just say this LSU front seven is pretty elite in terms of getting after the pass rusher. You want someone with pocket presence. You want someone who's big and can take command of that pocket. And I don't think anyone in the stadium this weekend on that Auburn team will be more motivated to go out and win this game than TJ Finley. And all this narrative, and I said it, I appeared on Bryce Coon's podcast, The Crowded Booth. Go check it out on YouTube right now. This narrative that TJ Finley is not better than Bo Nix because he had to transfer from LSU is outrageous, and it's a tough talk coming from a fan base of a school who's arguably their two best quarterbacks ever, statistically, and Nick Marshall and Cam Newton were both transfers. And Nick Marshall wasn't even a quarterback until he went to junior college. So let's just ease up on the assumptions. And playing a school in LSU whose transfer quarterback Joe Burrow transferred from Ohio State, and that wasn't the mindset they used. It's just a lazy take on behalf of Auburn fans who think that way. Now, for me, the Auburn wide receivers are also going to be a huge part in this key factor because it's going to be interesting to see how they respond to their positional coach being fired 4 weeks into his tenure. Kobe Hudson and Shedrick Jackson have to be big. Demetrius Robertson is banged up, but he should get some action this weekend if he can go. In the tight end position has been huge. John Samuel Shanker has been big, 13 catches for him, and him and Kobe Hudson were really the only two receivers to step up in that trip to Happy Valley against Penn State 2 weeks ago. Now, moving on to LSU, it should be obvious what LSU's keys are because they can't run the ball consistently. And Auburn's weakness, which I said was their weakness against Penn State, is the intermediate passes. The middle of the field is going to be wide open for Auburn unless something changes on that defense. And Max Johnson has the ability to sit in the pocket and distribute the ball to his playmakers. That should be the entire key to the game. Can Max Johnson be a distributor of the football to his playmakers on the outside? And can he target the middle of this Auburn defense? Can he put the linebackers and safeties in one-on-one matchups and this offense go make plays? That is the whole That should be the whole key for anyone playing Auburn. And I said it in my Penn State Auburn preview. That's what they were going to do. And Jahan Dotson had a 10 catch night, and Sean Clifford missed 4 passes. LSU has really struggled to run the ball, and Max Johnson has stepped up in a big way, especially after some people were critical of him week one, even though I think that was more the offensive line's fault. But he's completed over 64% of his passes for over 1,100 yards, 15 passing touchdowns, and only 3 picks. I told y'all this offseason, I've been a Max Johnson fan since the end of last season. He should have been the starter, even if all the other quarterbacks in this LSU quarterback race to start the season were healthy, even over Brennan, even over Finley. Max Johnson, for me, fit this offense the best and fit this LSU team the best. LSU's rushing game, only 80 yards per game, 2.9 yards per carry. Tyron Davis Price has to be better. But the reason that LSU's key is the mid-range pass is because that's where Johnson's made his living. He has absolutely dominated the middle of the field in that intermediate range of like 10 to 19 yards, so right in there. Now, he can, if he's able to pick this Auburn defense apart the same way Sean Clifford was, it's going to be a long day for the Tigers from Auburn. But 60% of his passes for 422 yards, 6 touchdowns, no turnovers for Max Johnson when throwing passes 10 to 19 yards down the field, and he grades over a 90 by Pro Football Focus Advanced Analytics. And in the middle of the field, he's 13 for 18, 242, and 5 touchdowns. That is between the numbers in the intermediate range, which is exactly where the weakness is for this Auburn defense. So that has to be the key for LSU, because you want to use your strength against their weakness, just like Auburn running the football is using their strength against LSU's weakness. Max Johnson has to be on point this weekend, and they have to utilize this. Johnson has to be efficient, he has to avoid turnovers, and he has to be a distributor. Those are the 3 keys for Max Johnson in this LSU offense this weekend. Now, the wide receiving core, loaded in Baton Rouge down there. And they've had a few moving pieces early because they had some youth in the room. But over the last few weeks, they've really established their top options coming into this weekend. You look at Kayshon Boutte. He is the X factor for me. This weekend, Kayshon Boutte is going to be the Jahan Dotson for LSU. He needs to be used all over the field. They need to put him in the slot. They need to put him outside. They need to put him. They need to use him in the backfield. I don't care. Kayshon Boutte needs to be all over the field for LSU. Always looking to put him in a one-on-one matchup with a linebacker or safety and or a slot corner, because outside of Roger McCreary, there is not a bona fide a defensive back for Auburn. He has to be a key factor for this LSU offense. 24 catches, 300 yards, 8 receiving touchdowns, man. This guy is a touchdown machine, and he has been targeted double the amount of times any other LSU receiver has. He has 34 targets this year, second place on that list, only 16. And real quick, I know Roger McCreary's only played 7 snaps in the slot this year. He has to travel with Boutte if I'm Derek Mason with Auburn. Smoke Monday gets smoked all the time in one-on-one coverage, and Boutte is too athletic for him. Zion Puckett could be an option. He played pretty well last week. But for me, Roger McCreary has to be face-to-face with Kayshon Boutte consistently this weekend. Now, freshmen Brian Thompson Jr. and Deion Smith have been huge breakout guys for LSU this week. And for me, I think they're going to play big roles this weekend. They've had 15 catches, over 300 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And then Trey Palmer is another guy you should watch out for. Over 2 touchdowns already, 130, 11 catches. Max Johnson has done an excellent job of spreading the ball around and getting multiple guys involved in this offense. So that's going to be the key for LSU. Now, for the matchup to watch, I talked about under pressure for Nix and Finley, why I thought Finley should start this week. The matchup to watch is the Auburn offensive line against the LSU defensive line. This is going to be the matchup for me that ultimately determines who wins this game. If Auburn cannot protect the quarterback and the rushing game stalls like it did at times last week, LSU's running away with this game. But if the quarterbacks can get a little bit comfortable in the pocket and Tank Bigsby and Jarquez Hunter can explode, Auburn has an amazing chance to pull the upset and probably will. Now, this LSU defensive front has done an outstanding job getting after the quarterback. They lead the SEC right now in sacks with a whopping 18 sacks in only 4 games. They also have 45 pressures in the first 4 games of the season. This front seven gets after the quarterback. They have the SEC leader in sacks. BJ Ojolari, 5 sacks in 4 games, has been a menace off the edge. And then Andre Anthony and Mason Smith also rank in the top 5 in the SEC with 4 sacks for Anthony and 3 sacks for Smith, respectively. I fully expect the Tigers to bring the pressure all night long. I think a matchup like this will allow defensive coordinator Durante Jones to be extremely creative in how he brings pressure and how he can scheme it up in the back end with his very talented secondary. Now, I believe Derek Stingley is out for this game based on all the reports I've seen, but Elias Ricks is still there. Flott's played out outstanding. Burns has played outstanding. LSU's defensive backs are one of the deepest in the country. So I'm not worried about that. But really and truly, Georgia State, out of all the teams Auburn's played, is crazy. I'm saying this. Georgia State gave the I guess the blueprint on how to stop Auburn. You load the box and you make those receivers on the outside have to go make plays one-on-one, and they weren't able to do it last week. And that's not a great sign because this LSU defense is is in a whole nother class than what that Georgia State defense was. I think that's going to be similar to what we see this year in this LSU game. They're going to load the box and say, okay, can those receivers on the outside, can the Kobe Hudsons, can the Demetrius Robertsons, can the Shankers, can they go make plays on the outside for their quarterback? And the worst thing for Auburn would be if LSU gets pressure with 4, it's going to be such a long night. You're going to have to force LSU to blitz and bring someone from coverage down. Because if you let them sit back and base coverage and rush 4, it's going to be a brutal night in Baton Rouge for Auburn. Now, for the offensive line for Auburn, it's all about consistency for me. There are times where this unit looks legit, one of the best in the SEC. They'll be paving ways for Jarquez Hunter, paving ways for Tank Bigsby, giving Bo Nix and TJ Finley time to throw the football. But then there's other times where they can't block a soul, man. They just letting everything go by. They'll whiff on people. That Bo Nix will be running for his life. Bigsby last week had someone meet him at the line of scrimmage every single time he took the ball, just about. He got hit at the line of scrimmage immediately. And for me, Brodarius Ham has arguably been the most improved player for Auburn. Last year, he was very weak in pass rush, man. That Georgia game was brutal for Brodarius Ham. But this year, he's the highest graded offensive lineman on the team, only player to grade above a 70.0 in pass block in just pure blocking grades. Brodarius Ham deserves all the credit. Brodarius Ham deserves all the credit in the world, man. He has 0 sacks allowed, 0 hits on the quarterback, and only has allowed 4 pressures all season. Been playing lights out. The issue, though, comes up on the other side of the line of scrimmage. Austin Troxell has been getting just abused by everybody. Austin Troxell has to step his game up because if you let these edge rushers for LSU just tear you up, there is nothing you can do against this defense. And then also Brandon Council in the run blocking grade and Troxell both have grades under 50 in terms of advanced analytic run blocking grades. They have been some of the lowest graded run blockers in the SEC this season. That cannot happen this weekend. You are going to have to win the line of scrimmage if you're Auburn. The Auburn offensive line has to be up to the task on Saturday night. Because for me, it doesn't matter. You can throw Demetrius Davis out there. You could throw TJ Finley, Bo Nix. Man, Brian Harsin himself can go out there at quarterback. If the Auburn offensive line doesn't play well, they can't win this game. This matchup is of utmost importance. If LSU can keep the quarterbacks uncomfortable, this offense will not be able to move the ball, and LSU wins this one convincingly. But if Auburn can win the line of scrimmage, things could get very interesting in Death Valley. What I mean is they could get 1999 interesting, and Auburn can pull off the big win in Death Valley and really set themselves up if the offensive line can play well. Now, for predictions, man, I hardly ever on this podcast we've covered a lot of games, and I got a lot of flack for not picking Auburn against Penn State, man. And a bunch of Auburn fans, just ripped everything, and even had one apologize after Penn State won. But for me, man, I gotta stay unbiased here on this show. And for me, due to it, everything has to go right for Auburn to win this weekend. Tank Bigsby has to have a huge game. Jarquez Hunter has to be great in his role. Bo Nix and TJ Finley, whoever plays, has to be lights out. The offensive line has to play well. The secondary's got to solve their issue. Owen Papo's banged up. Demetrius Robertson's banged up at wide receiver. For me, there's too many things going wrong for Auburn right now to pull off this big win. I just think Max Johnson has a huge game this weekend, and I think LSU pulls out a close game. I think it so this game at halftime, I will not be surprised resembles the 2019 game last time Auburn was in Baton Rouge, where it was just a low-scoring physical game. Both offenses struggled at times, and it's just a back and forth grind out game. I just think I trust Max Johnson to make a play down the stretch more than I trust Nix or Finley. I have the LSU Tigers winning 21-17, a 4-point win for the LSU Tigers. I just think Auburn goes down, kicks a field goal. They've struggled in the red zone at times, and I think LSU is able to turn those red zone trips into points. And I just think LSU has a more explosive ability in the pass game, and I think they just make one more play than the Auburn Tigers. So I got LSU winning the Battle of the Tigers 21-17. Guys, if you're new, smash that subscribe button and like the video, man. Share it if you will as well. And I appreciate y'all tuning in to the Bluebloods for all this college football content. And I promise you need to smash that subscribe button because we got more college football content than anybody else on YouTube, man. You can't find it anywhere better on the web, man. So appreciate y'all tuning in. LSU 21, Auburn 17. Comment your score predictions in the comments and your thoughts on the game. I'd love to hear what y'all got to say. But for the Bluebloods right now, man, we are out.